Welcome to the Irish Flame Program, the great state of Arizona. Senator John McCain. Good morning, Senator McCain.
Good morning, Donald. Best American novel, in my view, is For Whom the Bell Tolls.
Yes, I know that. But Travels with Charlie.
That's a great book.
Yeah, it was not a novel.
Steinbeck was a great author. He was amongst the very best.
For Whom the Bell Tolls, I knew was your favorite novel, and we talked about it before.
Mm-hmm. I just thought I'd remind you.
Yeah. You just thought I'd forgot, didn't you?
In your old age, yes.
Thank you.
Tell me how things are at the ranch.
They're great. You know, I was here the other day, Meghan McCain.
What's that again?
Meghan McCain was here the other day.
Yes, she told me, and she was very grateful for your kind treatment of her, and I'm very proud of her. We have occasional disagreements, but I think that's healthy for families, don't you?
Yes, I do. You know, she's great. I told my wife, I said, she's adorable. She's well-spoken. She's willing to say exactly what she means and not pull any punches. So more like straight talk from the kid. Remember how you used to be. So well, I guess you still are now.
Well, I'm very proud of her.
Oh, man, you should be.
Proud of all my kids. So one of them just got out of the Marine Corps, and the other one is going through pilot training in Pensacola. He had gone to the Naval Academy, and our other daughter is starting at Arizona State University, and we're very happy with all of our children and all they're doing.
It is 24 till the hour. We're talking with Senator John McCain. Congratulations on your re-election, first of all. So
thank you.
I'm happy about that.
As you know, it didn't look like it was going to be so easy back in the beginning, and I think the moral of the story is no one should ever take, especially an incumbent these days, should take any election for granted and go all out.
I believe Fred IMUS, who lives in Tucson, voted for you.
Yeah, I run into Fred occasionally down in Tucson at the radio station down there, and he seems to be in very good health. And last time I was talking with him, he told me about some problems he was having being kicked off one of these social networks.
Well, we don't want to get into that, Senator. Please, I'm begging you. All right, on a far more serious note, the first Obama administration civilian trial for this former Gitmo detainee ends with the guy being acquitted on 284 of 285 counts against him. Peter King says it's a disgrace. What does Senator John McCain say?
Well, I think we have military commissions, and that's the place for these trials, and they should be held in Guantanamo. We have a large court set up there where we could get the job done, and this business of trying KSM in New York City was probably one of the nuttiest proposals I've ever heard come out of any administration.
What was the point of this? Do you know? What was their rationale?
New York City? I don't know.
The administration
wanted to employ a lot of security people. It would have taken hundreds or thousands to make sure that trial was secure. I never understood that rationale, but it was crazy. It was nutty.
But I'm talking about this trial.
Oh, I don't know why they're doing what they're doing, Don. We have provisions for military commissions to carry out trials. We have trained military lawyers. We have a place in Guantanamo to get it done. And so I have not understood why they're doing what they're doing.
I know it's not of your nature. It's really not to criticize the guy you ran against, President Obama. He won the election, and that's that. We all want him to do well. He's the president of the country. So, But this trip to Asia, in which he even failed to get a trade deal with the South Koreans, which even I would suspect that most administrations would already know whether they had a deal or not before they went, has put the United States and his presidency in kind of an untenable position in the world, hasn't it?
Well, I think there is a certain perception in the world. As you know, I just came back from a trip to Afghanistan and Pakistan and Iraq. There's a perception out in a international gathering up in Halifax, Nova Scotia, but there's a perception of weakness in America. Part of it has to do with our weak economy. Part of it has to do with a view that we are sounding an uncertain trumpet in places like Afghanistan, and there is clearly the rise of China. There's a lot of things going on, but on the specific issue of the Korean trade agreement, that thing has been sitting out there for a long time. For two years ago, I believe the president, when he first took office, if he had pursued it vigorously, we could have reached an agreement. There's also pending ones with Colombia and Panama, which are important but pale in significance, obviously, to the importance of the agreement with South Korea. And the bad news is that South Korea has now been making trade agreements with other countries, including Europeans, which is basically preventing us from getting the market share and that we would otherwise get. There's protectionism out there in this country. When we passed the so-called stimulus bill, they put in a, quote, Buy America provision. But this administration waited a long, long time before they started focusing. And clearly they didn't have a deal when they got to Seoul, when the president got to Seoul.
Of course, I'm wondering if, because of the various success of the economies of some of these countries around the world, if it didn't like a bunch of sharks in the water and they sense a little blood on the part of the United States, and so it wouldn't make any difference who was president, they would still they would still assert their own kind of muscle, independent economic muscle, regardless.
Well, I think that may be, but I think it's also clear that the thing was holding up the South Korean agreement for a long time were the labor unions here in the United States. The same thing with Colombia, same thing with Panama. So it does have something to do with domestic politics. But, you know, it's a tough world that we're in. And, yeah, I think that there's some perception, as I said, that America is weakening partially because of our sluggish, if you want to use that word, economy. And the sharks are out there. But then it should argue that we should stop the spending, get our economy back in order, stop borrowing hundreds of billions of dollars from China, and get our economic house in order, and also get the job done in Afghanistan. I would continue our withdrawal from Iraq and pay attention to the tensions that are clearly all around the world.
General Motors selling, speaking of all that sort of, General Motors selling stock today and $33 a share, and apparently going to be able to pay back some of the $50 or $60 billion they owe you and me and Charles and Bertie and everybody else.
Well, obviously, I think we should all be happy about that. There'll still be $30 or $40 billion, whatever it is, they still owe us. And the second thing is that I think they could have gone into bankruptcy and emerged and done the same thing. Instead, we bailed them out, and we put the unions ahead of everybody else, turning the normal bankruptcy procedures on its head. But I'm glad that they're doing well, and let's hope that they will continue to have a competitive product. And we should also give them some credit for a lot of the tough decisions they made on making a GM from what was obviously a very bloated, bureaucratic, kind of inefficient organization into a very excellent one.
I'm talking with Senator John McCAIN here in the Irish Morning Program 17. So, where are you this morning?
I'm in my office here in the Senate. We, it's amazing. Harry Reid must think that it's the last train out of town, this lame duck session, because every day he announces we're going to do something else. It's going to be the START Treaty, and it's going to be Don't Ask, Don't Tell, and it's going to be the DREAM Act, and we've got to make a deal on the tax extenders, and we also have to have some kind of funding for the government next year, plus a few other, either a continuing resolution or just to keep the government in functioning, or another appropriations bill. All of that he's going to jam into a couple of weeks. It's going to be a very interesting exercise to try to watch here.
Well, he escaped by the hair of his chinny chin. Yeah,
and one of the things you got to give Harry Reid credit for is when the Republicans were in a primary, one of the what we believe was a stronger candidate, Sue Loudon, he ran attack ads against her in the Republican primary. That was a very smart move on his part. He should never underestimate Harry Reid's political skills.
Well, he's a tough old guy. Yeah, so.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I just kind of like him. I don't know why. I don't know if I agree with him on much, but I
Well,
don't agree with you on anything. So I like you. So.
Well, it's not all his fault, but we used to take up bills and have amendments and debates, and now we take up a bill after he has closed out us having amendments on bills. And it's not all his fault, but certainly the atmosphere here is, I've seen, become very different than it was when I first arrived in the United States Senate back in 1896.
Is it unreal?
I'm
coughing. I'm sorry.
I meant 1986.
Is it unrealistic to expect that there's going to be a new level of cooperation between particularly the Republicans in the House and Democrats in the administration?
I think a lot of it depends on the president. As you well know, and it's been widely discussed, that in '94, after Republicans did well, after some initial collisions with President Bill Clinton, there was a coming together, and a lot of things got done. Probably the most important welfare reform bill in history, balanced budgets, a number of other achievements were legislative successes were achieved because President Clinton, who was still the smartest politician that I have ever encountered in my political career, was able and decided to move to the center. Whether President Obama will move to the center or not is not clear to me. His rhetoric certainly doesn't indicate that he's ready to do that, but we'll see what happens when they meet at the White House next week. I'm sure it'll be an interesting occasion.
And finally, this Don't Ask, Don't Tell you mentioned a few minutes ago, Harry Reid wanting to. Where are you on that?
Well, I just want a study that actually assesses the impact of morale and battle effectiveness of the repeal. They did a study that said, how do you, quote, implement the repeal? Didn't get very good turnout from the troops as far as numbers is concerned. I'd like to know the impact on battle effectiveness and morale, retention, and recruitment. We are in two wars. As I mentioned to you, I just came back from Afghanistan. I was in a forward operating base. A 19-year staff master sergeant in the Army came up to me. By the way, he was on his fifth tour to Iraq and Afghanistan, and said, look, Senator, we eat, sleep, fight in close proximity. I'm not sure what the impact of repeal is going to be on my ability to win this fight. I'd like to know that. I heard that from non-commissioned officers all over Afghanistan and Iraq. And those are the people, as you well know from your Marine Corps experience, are the people that we really rely on to lead the troops and win the fights. So that's all I've asked for. They won't do it. Apparently, it was the president's political promise during the campaign to the gay and lesbian community. And so I would hope that we could get that study done and make a thorough assessment before we repeal Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Happy Thanksgiving and all that. So
thank you, and best to Deirdre and Wyatt and all the gang, and thanks for your continued care for these young children who obviously are very grateful, as all of us are.
Thanks, Senator. Senator John McCain here in the IMUS Morning Program. 12 minutes down to the hour.